Hey, welcome to the other side of my sewing room. That machine behind me is called a long arm, and that's what you used to make the quilts, like the quilt I made for Miss Wells. That's what I made it on. I'm going to switch over so that I can see if I have any, so that I can see if I have anybody online and see what's going on with that. And so that way I can get some comments if people are joining in. Tomorrow we have our test over Civil War and Reconstruction. Um, I'm going to go over a few points. I've been taxi mom today, so I've been running a lot, and now I've just been running up and down the stairs so that I'm getting all my stuff together. We're going to cover everything from causes. Hi, how are you? How's it going, Ryan? I always enjoy when you join me. Hope others can pop in and join us too. So we've got our test. It can cover anything beforehand, but we're basically going to look at different causes of the war. We're going to look at what happened during the war and Reconstruction. And it's 30 questions. I went and ran it tonight during the NJHS ceremony. See, I told you I was being taxi mom. And then, well, I don't think it's any harder than the last one. That's a good question. I took old star questions like I did last time, and I took some old questions. So, but we're going to go over a lot of the stuff. I found an evil question, I won't lie. But if you know your 50 states from your test, you should be okay. So I did take some questions that were like on the 50 states test where there's outlines of the states and I ask you questions and you have to be able to recognize that. Way to go, Neo. I am proud of you. Awesome. So you won't have to be grounded in advisory tomorrow. Awesome. Okay, so let's look at some of the events leading up to the Civil War. I'm going to review a few of those. One of them is we're going to start with the Missouri Compromise. Now, the Missouri Compromise was in 1820, and it's one of the first problems that we had to try to settle disputes. And it was in reaction to what crisis? Can somebody tell me what crisis was happening with Jackson and Calhoun, and the great compromiser Henry Clay is going to come in and offer this solution. But I want to know from you if you know what crisis it was that caused the Missouri Compromise to be created. I hate the 15-second delay, I'm not going to lie. And as we know, unity is more important than tariffs, said Mr. Clay. Anybody got an idea? I'm looking to see if I have some comments back. Starts with an N. It's when Andrew Jackson threatened to hang John C. Calhoun. No, slaves wasn't a crisis. That's one of your three causes. But we're looking at what caused the Missouri Compromise to occur. So slaves is one of the causes. We had the three S's, the sectionalism. So there we go, nullification crisis. Good job, Jack. Nullification crisis is what caused the Missouri Compromise. And compromises, we drew a line. You want to tell me what that line was? I was saying slavery, sectionalism, and states' rights. But I need to know what that line's called that we had. And if you can tell me what the rule was that with that line that goes with the Missouri Compromise. The 3630 line, right, Ryan? You remembered it. What was the rule about the 3630 line? What did it say? Hey, Tristan, glad you could join us. What was the rule about slavery in that line? Because it's going to impact us. No slaves above the line. And who could come in as a slave state and who could come in as a free state. We had two states come in. One came in as a slave and one came as a free. And the irony is that the slave state was above the 3630 line, ironically speaking. There goes Natalie. Missouri and Maine. Good, Tristan. And which one was the slave state and which one was the free state? Right. Missouri was the slave state. Maine was the free state. Awesome. So we're going to have that. And then we're going to have a little bit of time. And we have a rebellion. Natalie, what are you doing? Get out of the back picture. You have, then we go on to Nat Turner's rebellion, which was a house slave rebellion. And it went really bad. And we also have a famous abolitionist that had a newspaper called The Liberator. Does anybody remember his name? He was part of the reform movement for abolitionists. They did. Yeah, they killed the owners. What do you mean by the top 10 stream fails? I don't understand that, Nick. No, it wasn't Frederick Douglass. Frederick that escaped and went on to become a lawyer and taught himself to read and write, and he'll become a leading abolitionist. It was William Lloyd Garrison had the newspaper The Liberator. Frederick and starts a new life in New York City, and he will be a huge spokesperson for the abolitionist movement. So that's who that was, William Lloyd Garrison, one of our reformers. Then we're going to have another compromise in 1850, because if you recall, it'll be put forth that the states coming in should have popular sovereignty, and California wants to come in as a free state. Oh, that's okay, Connor, you're good. The compromise of 1850 is going to have California coming in as a free state, and in exchange for that, what does the South get as their benefit? It's going to help them, because all the way up to this point, we've been worried about that balance of power between the Senate and the House, and the Senate between the slave states and the free states. So we're trying to figure out what's going on. So, but what I need to know from you is California's going to come in free state. Good. The Fugitive Slave Act. And Tristan or anybody, can you tell me what the Fugitive Slave lighted for the South? How did they benefit? On a side note, last one, remember how I couldn't see any comments? Well, what was happening is my restricted mode was messed up, and so it helped us fixed it today. Yay! The North had to return the slaves if they were caught and run away, and it allowed the slave owners to hunt runaway slaves. Exactly. And it's going to end up being bad because you could bribe a judge more money to claim a free man, a slave, than you could prove that a man was free. And so it got very corrupt, and it was not a good deal. This is going to lead to the Kansas-Nebraska Act. And there was a politician from Indiana who said, we need to let popular sovereignty, we need to let the people decide. Kansas and Nebraska, the Kansas territories can be broken into Kansas and Nebraska, and we're going to let the people vote. And the slave state of Missouri next door is going to send people in to, because there's no way really to do voter fraud or to keep people from not voting. And they're going to go, and there's going to be bleeding Kansas. We're going to have John Brown shows up. He's going to kill 4 pro-slave guys. They're going to have all this fighting. Over 200 people are going to be killed during this time period with bleeding Kansas. Which then we go to 1857, and we're going to have a famous Supreme Court case that declares that slaves are property and not people, and therefore they cannot sue. What is the name of that Supreme Court case? And remember, the plaintiff goes first versus the defendant. Dred Scott. Dred Scott versus who? Scott versus Sanford. Oh, Connor wins the ticket for that one. Okay, so we have Dred Scott case, Scott versus Sanford, and then at the next year, Stephen Douglas's seat's going to be up for open, and a young politician who's going new party called the Republican Party will be running against him, and they will have a series of debates for this Senate race. Who is this young politician who is going to be running against Stephen Douglas? Lincoln Douglas. It's the Lincoln Douglas debate. Lincoln will be the young politician. He's going to be going against Stephen Douglas. Stephen Douglas is going to lose a lot of popularity because he tries to give everybody so much that he wants. And what's going to happen out of this is these series of 7 debates are going to get Lincoln and Douglas nationally recognized. And it's also going to bring slavery to the forefront. There you go. Call him out there, Connor. So we have Lincoln and Douglas. And then John Brown has now left Kansas and he has gone to Harper's Ferry, Virginia. And what happens at Harper's Ferry? Who can tell me what happens there? Yes, Connor, that's right. Douglas tries to play to everyone's interest instead of being honest. Yes, Jack, you're right. And Trump did cite Lincoln a lot in his election, that he was like Lincoln. So I understand your connection with that. But back to this, John Brown is in Harper's Ferry, and he takes his sons and blows up an arsenal, which is a collection of, and he's trying to leave a slave revolt. And instead, he is captured, he is tried, and he is hung. That's correct. And then we're going to go on. 1860 happens. Hey, did Lincoln win that Senate election? Did Lincoln win that Senate election? No, Lincoln did not win the Senate election. That's right, Jack. And so that's going to leave him open to run for president in 1860. And because there are so many Democrats running, the reason there's so many Democrats running is each part of the country is going to put forth their own candidate. And that is called what? What is that concept where each section is so loyal to themselves and putting forth that they don't think of the big picture? Sectionalism, very good. Sectionalism is where we're going to be totally loyal to our one side, and we are not going to look for that. And as a result of that, Lincoln will win the election. And now South Carolina is upset, and the first thing they do is what? What does South Carolina do immediately? They secede, right? They leave the Union. And as they leave the Union, they realize that they need to get control of a certain port in the South, in South Carolina. And what is the name of that port or that town that it's located in? And then we'll get into what the skirmish is called. A lot of states will secede in 1861. That's correct, Connor. We're going to have Georgia, Florida, Alabama, Mississippi, Louisiana, and Texas. And then by March, Virginia, North Carolina, Arkansas, Tennessee will also leave. There's going to be 11. Charleston, yes, Fort Sumter's where the battle will be, and it's more of a skirmish or a military action. And the South goes in the arsenal and the fort so that they can control the port. And those are the first shots fired in the Civil War. The first real battle is going to occur. Which scissors do you need? Paper scissors are going to be downstairs on the dining room table. Okay.
Sorry.
That's okay. Are you working on math homework?
Yeah.
Okay. Bull Run will be in Manassas, Virginia. It's the first serious one, and this is where everybody realizes, oh, this is a real battle. This is what's really going to happen. Until then, pretty much everybody thought it was going to be a gentleman's fight. They were going to go out, put on a show, and it would be over. Or that the South would lose and they would get all overrun and it was done. And that's not what happened. Another important battle to remember is the single bloodiest day of the war, and it's going to happen in Tennessee. Anybody remember what that one's called? The single bloodiest day of the war. Antietam, excellent. Antietam will be the single bloodiest day. We also will have a battle in the Western Theater. That's what it's called, your theater of war, the area where the battles take place. That's going to be the first one, yes, the Battle of Shiloh, that's going to give control of the Mississippi River to the Confederacy or the Union. Who's going to gain control of that? Very good. The Union will now have control of the upper part of the Mississippi. The South still has control of New, and then all this time, Lincoln has a military plan to squeeze. What is his military plan to squeeze the South? But how, Connor, does he want to split the South in two? What's the name of that plan? The Anaconda Plan, very good. And he needs a really strong general. And he first approaches Robert E. Lee, and Robert E. Lee says, so sorry, dude, can't do it because I cannot fight against my home state of Virginia. So instead, he goes with McClellan first, who trains the whole time and loses at Shiloh. Then he's fired. Then who comes after McClellan? Not Grant. Grant's at the end. Grant did take over Shiloh. You're right, and win it for him. But that still wasn't enough to get him the leadership of the McClellan's going to lose all his battles. And then, so then we're going to go to the guy with the big bushy sideburns. Where it comes from. That's your hint for the second guy in command. Not Jackson. Jackson's probably dead by this point. Burnside, General Burnside. Exactly. It'll catch up. General Burnside will be second, then to Hooker, and then 2 days before the Battle of Gettysburg, a new general will be played. Number 4 will be placed in. Oh, good. Glad it's back on, Connor. The General Burnside will be replaced by General Hooker, and then Hooker 2 days before Gettysburg will be replaced by this guy. And it's McClellan was the first one. Good try, though. It does start with an M. As a matter of fact, this fort is up in D.C. where the National Cemetery is. Grant will be number 5, Connor. So we've got McClellan, Burnside, Hooker, Meade. There you go. It'll be Meade and then Grant. Because Grant can close the deal. Meade couldn't close the deal. Okay, so we've had Fort Sumter, Bull Run, Antietam, Single Bloodiest. Shiloh gets control of the upper Mississippi. And then we're going to have a battle that's the turning point. This is the one that's going to change things up. Yeah, you better be reading. There goes Annie. No bark. No. Yes, Gettysburg is the bloodiest battle in U.S. history. 50,000 are killed. The turning point for the war. As a matter of fact, later Lincoln will give this address, and it will be a 2-minute address that people thought was going to be longer, dedicating the museum, the National Cemetery, and instead it is just a simple speech that to this day talks about the importance of our country coming together. Yes, the Gettysburg Address. And we will have the Gettysburg Address. Then New Orleans will fall, which will give control of the port at the south and leads to the siege of this. Yes, the unifies the Union and ups morale. Then we're going to have a siege. This is what's going to be that gets Grant the leadership of the Union Army. This siege on this town that secures 100% control of the Mississippi River to the Union. And then the Mississippi's going to 100% belong. And then we're going to bring in this other guy that's going to lead to this. Yes, Vicksburg. Excellent. Vicksburg will be the siege. A siege is where you just bomb and bomb and bomb and bomb continually. And what the reason it happened is because that's when the people, they dug out like forts in the wall, the sides of the Mississippi River banks. And so the cannonballs would just hit it and bounce off. And so the people stayed there for months. And so this is going to cut off the Confederate supply lines. They're going to bring in this other general that's going to start in Atlanta. And he's going to march from Atlanta, Georgia, through Georgia, up to South Carolina, then to North Carolina. Trench warfare, Tristan, does not come along. One. No trench warfare till then. So, anyways, this general's going to come in and take control, burn Atlanta, 60 miles wide, through Georgia, through North Carolina, or up to South Carolina to North Carolina, and cripple the South. Yes, Ethan, glad you could join us. Sherman's March to the Sea, 60 miles wide. And this type of warfare, Grant gave William Tecumseh Sherman the ability to do this, where we just kill and demolish everything in our path. What is that type of warfare called? Total war. Awesome. So we got total war. We've got Sherman's March to the Sea. At this point, the South has their back broken, and Lee is going to meet up with Grant at this town in to the north, and the war will be over. Does anybody know what that place is? It's sort of like, if you pronounce it wrong, it's like calling it Bexar, not Bear County. So it's one of those words that they get pretty sensitive if you don't say it the right way. Appomattox Courthouse. Awesome. Appomattox Courthouse is where we're going to have the Lee will surrender to Grant. And there's only one other battle that happens, and we learned this last year in Texas history. And it happens in Texas. Does anybody by chance remember the last battle that was fought in April? The war had ended. They just didn't get communication to them. It happened on a ranch. Not Brownsville. It's going to be the Palmetto Creek. I'm sorry, the family phone is acting up. That is weird. So we have that. And so now we're going to go in, and I want to go back over some other events that happened besides the battle. Lincoln got really upset at the South, so he took action to free the slaves in the South, mind you. He did not free the slaves in the border states. We call them the border states. There were four. It's going to be Missouri, Maryland, Kentucky, and Tennessee. I mean, not Tennessee, Missouri, Delaware. Missouri, Maryland, Delaware, Missouri, and then we include West Virginia in there also. So 5. Those are the oh, I'm glad you got your phone back for this, Ethan. So the we're gonna have y'all's emojis are killing me. I forgot what I was talking about. Oh, the border states are the slave states that stayed loyal to the Union. So it's not going to affect those border states. But Lincoln, yes, Emancipation Proclamation to free the slaves in the South. Is that effective, really? Is it going to be effective in freeing slaves? Right. The 13th Amendment's what's going to free them. But the Emancipation Proclamation, did it really free the slaves? What would be the purpose or the intent? Why would Lincoln even issue the Emancipation Proclamation if it's not going to do that? Well, you're right, Connor. It's exactly. He wants to make the South angry because he's about had it with them. So the war's over. Lincoln gets reelected a second. He wants to rebuild the Union. He goes to Ford's Theater. He has a plan to bring. Yes, the 13th Amendment ended slavery. Yes, Ryan, the 13th Amendment. The 14th will give them citizenship. The 15th gives all males the right to vote. Lincoln's going to go to Ford's Theater. He has this whole plan. And instead, his path will change. What happened to Lincoln at Ford's Theater that's going to change the way Reconstruction occurs? I keep scratching my head. I don't like all my visuals here. I keep doing this too much. John Wilkes Booth. And then as a result of that, there were 3 plans for Reconstruction. There was Lincoln's plan that said 10% of the voters had to proclaim allegiance. Then there was the vice president's plan. And who was the vice president? Anybody remember who the vice president was? Bueller. Johnson. Johnson. So he's going to have a plan, and all he wants to do is put in effect black codes. What he's going to do is what are black codes? Well, basically, what is the purpose of the black codes? Wades Davis, we're not doing. I'm not getting into that technical. Basically, the black codes essentially keep slavery. It restricts the rights of the freedmen in the South. Everything the way it was. Excellent, Ethan. You're doing good. So that's Johnson's plan. And this group of Republicans that had a name, Thaddeus Stevens was part of them. He had Thaddeus Stevens, and I cannot remember the other guy's name because I'm drawing a blank right now. They are going to, it takes civil rights, yes. They're going to have their plan. And what was the name of that group of Republicans that comes up with the Reconstruction plan that we end up with? Which basically districts, martial law. It's to punish the South. The radical Republicans are going to be the ones that rebuild the South, and they want to punish them. And there's going to be a group of Southerners who are for the Union and getting back in, and they support. Could be given this nasty little name. Nasty, nasty name. Anybody remember what those Southerners who are in favor of rejoining the Union, the name they got? And then the other name I want Northerners who came down. Good, scallywags. The Northerners who came down that are going to take advantage of the South in their rebuild and buy things for super cheap and help with Reconstruction. My nose itches. I'm itching all over. I hate this. Carpetbaggers. Excellent. So we have scallywags coming down. We have carpetbaggers coming down. And now we have 3 amendments. Yes, the allergies are killing me. I'm just itching and we have 3 amendments that are going to be our Reconstruction amendments. 13, 14, 15. Who does? And then put what 14 does. And then tell me what 15 does. I want candy. I want chocolate pudding really bad. I want chocolate pudding. I promise. Gives rights of citizenship. Yep. Anybody know what 13 does? Besides Connor? You don't know what 15 does? Okay. Does anybody else know what 15 does? Yes. 15 gives all men the right to vote. 13 bans slavery. Excellent. Now, meanwhile, out west, we got some legislation going on. And we have 3 laws that were passed during Reconstruction to aid in the West. Okay? I'm going to, and you're going to tell me what it is. This act allowed for agricultural colleges to be made. This act allowed for agricultural colleges to be created because we're rebuilding the West. As a matter of fact, because of the Civil War, that's why Texas will get wealthy off of cattle, and they're going to round up the Longhorns because that's all they have left. 15 is where all black men get the right to vote. Actually, it's all men of color get the right to vote. All males. Women won't get it till 1920. The Morrill Act, excellent. And then we have this act that was cheap land for anybody going west so they could help settle the West. Brian doesn't know. Anybody else? It's the Homestead Act. The Homestead Act, you could get cheap land going west. Then the third act, this one, now under the Indian Removal Act, we moved the Cherokee from the East Coast into Comanche territory. This act is the final Indian Wars. We're going to get rid of the Sioux. We're going to get rid of the Comanche. We're going to get rid of the Blackfoot. Excellent. Dawes Act is what is going to go and put the Indians onto reservations. In other words, the Kickapoo Lucky Casino exists today because of the Dawes Act. So that's the ad you probably hear on the TV or on the radio all the time. At least I do. So those are our 3 Reconstruction Acts. And then we're going to get into the black codes and the Jim Crow laws. Does anybody have any questions? Because pretty much that's about it. And we're wrapping pretty much everything up. So if anybody's got any questions or westward expansion questions you have real quick, ask me. Otherwise, we're going to wrap up and end. Thanks, Connor. Appreciate it. The Kickapoo appreciate it. I want candy. Pop, 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 pop. Oh, and by the way, those of y'all that aren't taking the Algebra EOC on Monday, y'all are going to help make a video for this in-service we're going to do. We're going to do some trial and error on some of the pop-up tutorials and get some pointers and change some stuff up and do some training ones. You're welcome. Anytime, Ryan. Anybody else have any questions? More coming up. Y'all have a great evening, and I'll see you tomorrow. Get a good night's sleep. You're welcome. Talk to y'all later. Have a great night.